Hello and welcome to an extended edition of Eye on Africa this Tuesday evening. I'm James Creedon. Now, it's been less than a week since Paris announced it will withdraw all of its troops from Mali. This after a 10-year campaign of assisting Bamako in a battle against Islamist separatists. But since an August 2020 coup and a refusal by the ruling military junta to hold elections, relations have collapsed between the two countries. Tonight, we bring you an exclusive interview with Mali's Prime Minister Choguel Maiga. He says that French authorities sought to divide Mali over the past decade, fanning the flames of separatism in the north of the country. He insists Bamako never requested the departure of French troops, despite a souring of diplomatic relations. Choguel Maiga also says that the discourse of French authorities left him in no doubt that France wanted to overthrow the military junta. This interview by Alain Foucault.
Hello, welcome to this interview. Our guest today is the Prime Minister of Mali, Mr. Choguel Maiga.
Hello, Alan.
I'd like to begin by saying that you're viewed as the hawk who decided to boot the French out of Mali. Is that an exaggeration?
Of course. We're a team with a leader.
But we hear you speaking most often at the UN General Assembly. On the media, it's you. We haven't heard much from Assimi Goïta, the president, speak.
We share a lot. He gives me his orientation, so I know more or less. I mean, precisely, his vision of things.
He thinks that France was abandoned you in mid-air, as you hinted?
Abandoned in mid-air. It's a military term. When you say you abandoned in mid-air, in fact, it means betrayal. But we softened the wording, talking about the mid-air abandonment. These officers were 15, 18 years on the theater of operations. They were kidnapped, detained for months by the terrorists. They escaped ambushes, and he is the commander of the special forces.
He was on the ground.
Yes, in a difficult ground. He was part of the men who experienced in their flesh, in their soul, all the betrayals.
The word betrayal is mentioned often by you. When you say betrayal by France, but France says we came to help you. Had we not come in 2030, Mali would perhaps no longer exist. How can you speak of betrayal?
Look, when the powers of France, senators, members of the parliament, in discussions, say clearly, we have to deliver autonomy to the north so that the people of the Mali north and south cannot live together. Yes, they want to divide the Mali. It's not a federation. In 2015, when the call for the negotiation came out, the next day, Jean Le Drian, Minister of Defense, on the radio RFI, said the people from Mali made everything to live together, and they couldn't. Conclusion, either at the Senate, left-wing, right-wing, at the National Assembly, they said they will give autonomy to the north. The Foreign Affairs Minister of Nicolas Sarkozy, Alain Juppé, I listened to him, I documented it. He said on a TV channel, LCI, that his last travel to Mali in March 2012, he said to ATT, you have to give autonomy to the north. The autonomous leader said France promised to divide Mali. When the country was invaded and our government called on the French government, what has been said. Why do I say betrayal? What was agreed? The letter is crystal clear. Tactical air support, nothing on the ground. It's the soldiers of Mali who liberated Goa, Tombouctou, Kandal, but then The French army stopped them on their way.
Is that true? The French army prevented the entry to Kidal?
Absolutely.
How? What's the explanation how they couldn't enter a town in Mali?
It was by the weapons, and the French ambassador who was there then was Christian Rouillet. And for having said to his government, "You are making a major error. Those you are supporting do not represent the Tuareg community nor the Malian community. Do not discredit yourselves with them." 2 days later, he was relieved. You know who replaced him? The intelligence officer, the liaison officer with the terrorist movements.
The intelligence service chief.
An officer called Gilles Berson. He was appointed here as an ambassador.
We recall the joyous population in the streets. François Hollande came here. He was thanked for saving Mali. 9 years later, how come the French army left in the streets, the politicians?
Because on that day, the people of Mali believed the sincerity of the French. But when the Malian soldiers were prevented from entering Kigal, as by chance, terrorists were in this sanctuary. They prepared themselves for 2 years. During that time, the French army, who was not slated to be on the ground, while they were preventing the Malian army to get there, they brought 4,000 soldiers.
Wasn't that with the authorization of northern Mali?
No, it was not foreseen, it was not previewed. What has been said to the Malian was not that. 1 billion of CFA francs per day, all the rest was coming from the Allies. Do you know that Assimi Goïta, for the history, for the legacy, was part of the officers who were blocked at the entrance of Kidal? Special units. They were about to assault Kidal. The French blocked them.
What do you do now that you're asking them to leave?
We didn't ask them to leave. They said they're going to leave.
Under certain pressure from the authorities in the street.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, it came later. They said on June 3rd and on June 10th, because there's a new government, that they will leave Mali because Mali was about to discuss with terrorists. You have an agreement of defense. You decide suddenly to leave it. You don't tell us. We learn it through the media that the French announced that. This is not the way things have to be done. We know that the two terrorist forces in Mali, it's Al-Qaeda and the jihadists. The 70%, 80% of our problems come from Al-Qaeda. All the places where Al-Qaeda is, it's because the French left them to do that. So it's a way of telling Mali, we leave you in the hands of Al-Qaeda. We suggested a revision of the agreement. No, they shelved it. And at a given time, they became very nervous. They started to insult our leaders. The ambassador led subversive activities here.
Is that why you asked him to leave?
They insulted the president of the transition, the head of state, who said that's too much. And we felt that they were preparing a plan
to overthrow you.
It was crystal clear. Yes, overthrow the government. All the maneuvers was to overthrow all the speeches, legitimacy, this, the 2 coups. The first government transition stemmed from a coup. They committed it. We heard Macron said, oh, they made in 3 months more than the other one that we supported for 12 years. And now, okay, they did in 3 months more than what the others did in several years. It's a government stemming from 2 coups. Assimi Goïta said, the Malians are dying for 13 years. Shouldn't we try something different? We decided to diversify our partners.
The French soldiers are leaving. What are you going to do? How are you going to fill that vacuum?
The void. In any case, they started to create it. They left Tessali. They left the bases of Kidal. They were prepared to leave Gao and Tombouctou. They left Gao and Tombouctou. Those bases, we had to man them. them.
Are you occupying them today?
We are going to man them. We started it.
But there's still going to be a vacuum.
No, there's not going to be a vacuum. We already manned them with our means. We have the same army. The leadership has changed. We reorganized ourselves. No state can live without a leadership. No budget support.
No one helped you?
No one helped us. During those 2 years, we increased the wages. We equipped the army.
Where does the money come from?
More than the 32 past years. It comes from Mali.
We're talking about the presence of Wagner mercenaries. Are they there on the ground? And what do you give them in exchange? How do you pay them?
We are working with cooperants, Russian cooperants, in the framework of an agreement.
Have you signed a contract with a private company or with the Russian state?
We are working with the state of Russia.
But Putin
We
says...
have not to comment what other people say, heads of states or reporters. We have seen cargoes landing with brand new helicopters. There are Russian instructors who are with our officers.
It's not Wagner. Not Wagner.
Wagner. It's the French who are saying that. We don't know no Wagner.
What are the Russians giving you?
The Russian cooperation, not only the Russian.
We're going to come to the others.
We're not only with
Who
the
else?
Russians. Look, the French have geostrategic problems with the Russian. They want to get us into something which is not our fight. We obtained from Russians a strategic partnership since 1960. They trained 80% of our officers in the past. Bandawa made his training in Russia. Assimi, he didn't go to Russia.
Today, you're helped by the Russians. How do you pay them?
We pay them with the money of the Malians.
You didn't give them mines to the Russians?
No, we're not at that game. This is an attack against us. Should we give them mine? But it's our assets. We cannot forbid us from doing that. Nothing is less important than the security of the Malians. If the French would have played fair games, they inoculated us with the virus of Pétain-like philosophy, the defeat. Africa can do nothing without France, without Europe. We are equipping the army for 2 years. It's been months that we prepared the great offensive as of December 28. And since then until today, we destroyed more terrorist bases because they were sending teams against checkpoints, little places. We went to the core, to the heart of the terror base.
Are you gaining ground?
Yes.
What are the villages that you've recovered?
It's the circle of Vignono, occupied for 2 years. It has been liberated. Guinea has just been liberated.
People are returning?
Population are returning. We had 350,000 refugees for over 9 years. In a few months, 50,000 returned. In 2 weeks, 20,000 returned on a voluntary base.
Can you hold out without France today, without its army? How are you going to cope? No air support.
The French army left already. Barkhane substituted itself to Serval, saying that they are fighting terrorism, not to destroy terrorism, but fighting terrorism, ramping up the army and help the population. So it's a failure. The army wasn't ramped up.
Mr. Prime Minister, there are several partners. Is China a partner today?
China's a partner, of course. We don't hide it. We talk. We don't talk about all our partners. Well, the French are really focused on Russia.
We know that China does mine exchanges. Have you not given mining rights? How do you pay those states?
Is it the business of anyone how we find money in our country to equip ourselves? For us, to pay with mines, with cash, with gold, with diamonds, whatever belongs to us legally is none of the business of anyone else. There are foreign companies who are here. Nobody talks about it. I never said it's mines we gave to Russian or Chinese, and even if we do so, what's wrong with that?
Mr. Prime Minister, some will ask now that France has left, are you going to pull through militarily?
We will make it. We will ensure the security of our population. There are some results on the ground. For the first time, there is a reversion. People are not fleeing, they're going back home.
Prime Minister, why are you the subject of ECOWAS sanctions? Your neighbors with whom you trade, you're in the same organization, are sanctioning you and closing doors.
There is a contradiction, a basic contradiction between ECOWAS and us. ECOWAS wishes to bring elections. This is just an electoral process. Now, if you want no coup, you have to attack the causes of insurrection.
But 5 years is a long time.
I never said 5 years. 5 years is a suggestion coming from the national
How long can you
gatherings.
survive?
We have on the table discussions underway. We have figures that should be discussed with ECOWAS.
How long?
They turned us down. They said, since there was a project to overthrow you, since he gave the occasion, we will come up with an embargo and you will fall. Now they have seen we didn't fall. They'll come and we'll discuss between Africans. We'll find a solution. I can't tell you today.
So you're open to negotiations with ECOWAS.
Absolutely.
How can you survive these sanctions today? How do you think? Because it can last. How long?
I just told you. The virus of defeat was inoculated to the Africans.
Today, shouldn't you soften your positions?
We are ready to soften, but we cannot be led to suicide. ECOWAS wishes to organize elections without getting at the sources of the upheaval, of the upraising. Why? Because we don't settle the crux of the matter. Democracy is not only election. This is what ECOWAS is saying. If you want to found or get a state of law, you need laws. No terms of ECOWAS is talking about embargo. There is the Convention of the United Nations on the countries without seashore, forbidding an embargo against countries without shores. How do you want to abide by all the rules and say that you want to have a state of law just because you want to overthrow a regime?
All this today is before the Court of Justice, Prime Minister. Some say you're the problem, that you have a plan, a program, an ambition to become president at the end of this. What's your answer?
Today, I have one ambition, is to implement the mission the President of Transition entrusted me with.
You don't look in the mirror thinking you might be the next president?
No, I am a believer. Each man follows his destiny. Create the situation for the president to give me his trust.
But you won't be running for office?
We want to get our country out of this situation. Mali is laying on the ground. We want to raise him, to have him sit, to have him walk.
But you can't do it without your neighbors. And you're angry with your neighbors.
We're not crossed with our neighbors. They understood what they heard. The center of gravity of the country should be the people. The day the people disagrees with us, we will know what to do. They were afraid of the people. When you say something against France, when France is cross, you're nothing. We decided to tell our people. If the people says he's in disagreement with us, the next day we will leave. We will free the people.
We must end it there, Prime Minister. This ends the interview. Thanks, Prime Minister, for receiving us. More news follows on France 24 and RFI.
Okay, that interview there by Alain Foucault with the Prime Minister of Mali, Choguel Maiga. Now, we're joined in set by Cyril Payan. Good evening, Cyril. You were in Mali 3 times over the last 2 months, so you really have your finger on the pulse of what has been going on there. Now, what do you make of some of what was said in this interview by Mali's Prime Minister, notably that France is sought to help separatists in the north of the country when the Barkhane mission, led by France, was expressly to snuff out separatism in the north of the country? How can we explain that point of view?
Well, it's not a surprise from the very gentleman who was just saying this, his words, because he has been spreading as a key player in the anti-French sentiment in Mali for the past month, and to aggravate the bad relationship between Paris and Bamako. So this is one of the main populistic sentence saying that France in the years 2013, when they liberated part of Mali, actually generated some separatism and moreover, which is remain to be proven, considering the huge military operation going on the ground, that it actually did promote the jihadism, which is...
What is the logic of that? That just seems completely impossible to believe. Why would France promote separate Islamist separatism in the north of Mali? What are French interests? Where would the French interests be in doing that?
To answer that question, this is what you can see in the streets of Bamako for the past weeks: demonstrations anti-Operation Barkhane, which is this huge anti-jihadist military operation, which is maybe dated and has been to be reinvented. But this is a very Pan-Africanist, sovereignist and nationalistic, I would say populistic way of pushing with the words we are just gaining the ground, the very people in the street of Bamako. The problem is the fact that the France is leaving Mali, is maybe getting some success like this demonstration a few days ago in Bamako, but this is absolutely not the same in the vast part of Mali. And I just remind the gentleman that the central government is actually controlling less than 1/3 of this huge country. This is the biggest West African country in the region.
Right,
so
with the capital right down south, as far away as it could be from this troubled region. Now, Cyril, you were reporting, one of the subjects you were reporting on was Russian propaganda in Mali. Of course, this angle has been getting a lot of coverage, the fact that Russia might be quite present, and indeed the private security firm Wagner in Mali. To what extent is Russian propaganda influencing the population, perhaps even the military junta, in terms of their point of view vis-à-vis Paris's intentions?
Well, we have a very strong and heavy information war. This is even the French military is saying that the Russians are so ahead of us, or the Western side, I will say, in these terms, that they are really manipulating in Mali. And this is like Ukraine. This is a front in Africa of influence. And the Russians are just filling the gap, like the Chinese are doing it with commerce.
Because 10 years ago, François Hollande was welcomed with fanfare in Mali,
right,
as you know, when France came in, offering that military support. And 10 years later, we're seeing the public perception radically changed, right?
And also, but the French public also don't really understand and don't support anymore this war. And this is what we say: we can start a war. The other thing is to end the war.
Right.
And maybe this is also something we have to point on the French to maybe have been too late to decide to leave.
Cyril Payan, thank you for that.
Pleasure.
And now we were just talking about Wagner, and for several weeks now, mercenaries belonging to the Wagner Group have been in Mali delivering logistical support to the country's armed forces. As the eyes of the world are on Ukraine,